You're listening or viewing the Rayner on Leadership podcast. My name is Tom Rayner. I have a special guest who's been a frequent guest of Church Answers in a number of ways. And the person that you're seeing, if you're looking on YouTube, is Mike Stadelmayer. The person you will be hearing, if you are listening on your favorite podcast, is the same Mike Stadelmayer. Mike is the president of Church Growth Services. Church Growth Services has been a partner of Church Answers for quite a while now. We have a exciting kind of triple partnership for churches. We've got Brown, who is the building firm. We've got Church Growth Services,
love those guys,
this generosity firm, and then we've got Church Answers, who knows what we are, but we have our little part in that as well. And so anytime a church says, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing something with our facilities," we say, "Let's get you with Brown. Let's get you with Church Growth Services." And that's the pattern that we do. And if you don't know this, listeners or viewers, we select our sponsors. We don't solicit our sponsors. Now, I want to be clear that Mike and the folks at Brown are very, very good, but we went to them based upon reputation and the fact that they both have such a long-standing stellar reputation in the areas. Church Growth Services over 6 decades, or did you say 7 decades? If I read
6 decades, yeah.
6 decades. It's just an indication about how well they have been received. And Mike knows churches, and he knows the churches that are like your church. And we're going to be talking about that. If you did not hear or watch the first episode, he had some nuggets that he dropped, some incredible nuggets about increasing general giving, just the regular giving of the church. Mike, go back just because those were just nuggets, and we're going to get to capital giving in just a moment. But go back and talk about the moment of giving and talk about tying it to a mission. Tell us some of those nuggets you gave in the previous episode.
Yeah, honestly, pastor and church leader, the biggest impact you can have quickly is by paying attention to your offering moment on Sunday morning, and not just saying, "Hey, here's 3 ways you can give," but tying your ministry victories, your baptisms, your ministries, your community impact moments to the generosity of the congregation. Because the reality is those ministries wouldn't be happening without people supporting the church in order to make those ministries happen. And it is just such an incredible thing. And say thank you, because they don't have to give money to the church. They have all kinds of other nonprofits and good organizations they can support. And many of your congregants have been giving for decades faithfully and rarely have heard the words thank you come from the church. And just doing some simple things like that can really move, especially for your young givers. They are cause-driven more than rules-driven, and they want their lives to make an impact. So when you tie generosity to the victories that Christ is making in your church, then they feel like this investment is worth making because lives are being changed and the community is being impacted. And so for your Gen Zs and millennials, that's especially important.
And I want to just add one thing to those nuggets, and I hope you heard those, because we haven't even gotten to the capital fund giving, and we're talking about 5 ways to increase your church can increase your building funds now. Sam Rayner, whom you know, Mike gets Raynerized too much. He works with 3 Rayner sons, who are, of course, adults. I used to call them young adults, but the reality of it is they're more middle-aged than young. And he works with me as well. Sam has an incredible habit of handwritten notes where he tries to get to most of the givers every single year. He does not know how much they give, but the financial secretary says, "Okay, here's the list of our givers." And he will say, "I don't know how much you give, but I know that you give, and I want to thank you." And he does a handwritten note, a quick note. I don't know how many he does a week, but I know that he does a lot. So that takes a long time, but guess what? That's where it really pays off.
Yeah, it's powerful. I had a senior come to me after I'd written a handwritten note like that, tears in her eyes, carrying that note and saying, "Pastor, in over 30 years at this church, no one's ever said thank you. You can't know how much that note has meant to me." And she gave me a big hug, crying, holding her card in her hand, carrying it with her because somebody had bothered just to say thank you for her faithfulness in supporting the ministries of that local church.
That's incredible. And all of these nuggets that you just dropped are for any of the funds. Well, I don't know
Right.
about legacy giving, especially after they've died, but you'll it's certainly for the general giving and for the building or capital giving. Man, you should be thanking constantly for all types of income that's coming in because it's a gift from God through someone in your church, and so you give thanks to God and you give thanks to that person in the church as well. Let's
Right.
shift gears. Not really a shift because it was applicable regardless. But let's shift to the area of capital or building or renovating all the physical assets. Let's shift to that a moment, Mike. And I'm going to just pause and let you kind of give us some background of what's going on in there and some of the things that are happening. There's so much information, and I could ask directed questions, but I want you to hit
Yeah.
some of the more important issues right now in the area of capital giving, which we're defining as assets, buildings, renovation, though the type of things that are outside the normal budget. So, Mike, tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. We frequently get the question with the economy is are capital campaigns or generosity initiatives still being effective and are they doing well? The answer to that is they're doing extremely well. Uh, we have just seen God's people respond to vision and to mission and to the opportunity to make an impact in their communities with great generosity when they're being challenged. And that's really one of the keys to a great generosity campaign is the campaign is never about a building and it's never about dollars and cents, even though the building costs money and the building's a tool that the church will use to serve people. But the reality is the best campaigns are about recasting vision, mission, and life change.
Mm.
And when they're focused on that, people will give sacrificially and generously. If they've been a part of the church for a long time, they'll give just because you're doing drywall and paint and carpeting. But when they tie it to vision and mission of the church, they will be sacrificial instead of just generous.
Mm.
And it's really important for the church to focus on that vision more than a building.
Talk to us about the types of capital campaigns that are going on. Usually, you would think of things like a new worship center, a new gym, new education space. Those were some of the more traditional, and they're still there. They haven't gone away. Those buildings are still there. But I presume
Yeah.
you're hearing more about renovation. And presume you maybe I don't know how much you're hearing about debt retirement, but I'll let you instead of me presuming, I'll let you tell me what you're seeing.
Sure, sure. We're seeing a lot more renovation, a lot more deferred maintenance campaigns,
Mm,
and a lot more debt removal, debt elimination campaigns than we used to. It used to be it was all brand new children's wing, brand new sanctuary. Now, because part of it is they have enough space, they just need to reuse the space better.
mm,
Just changing their lobby space. I went to a lot of churches when I pastored. You walk in the door and you had to go upstairs or downstairs, and there was no lobby area, fellowship space in that area, and you were herded like cattle through the doors, either downstairs to the Sunday school rooms or upstairs to the sanctuary or something. Well, a lot of those churches need to build some space so that your church family can build a community, and that's happening a great deal as well. Not expansion as much as repurposing that space.
Well, we're hearing the same, Mike, and of course, Church Answers does not get into the capital. We don't get into any of the fundraising. If there's a need, we know who we're going to call. And it ain't Ghostbusters, it's Church Growth Services who we're calling whenever we get those requests. And I'm, you know, sometimes you're in Church Answers Central, which is our membership forum, but more, really more than that, it's a 24/7. You ask anything and you'll get an expert answer. And I see you in there from time to time.
Yeah.
We are hearing from that group, but we're hearing from a lot of consultation requests more and more about the renovation, more and more about the deferred maintenance. What I would like you to do we so we're talking about a new building. We're talking about renovating a building. We're talking about debt retirement or debt reduction. So we're talking about a number of things in the capital area, deferred maintenance. Talk to us about what church growth services does. And the reason, yeah, I want to promote CGS, I really do, because of the partnership, but I have a greater purpose. I want to pull back the veil because I've had three conversations in a month, not a ton, but three conversations in a month when they said, how does it work? Because we've got these young pastors, even some middle aged pastors who've never been through this, and sometimes they won't make the leap because they don't understand what is going to take place. Give us a little bit about the process.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing. Even though it can be an intimidating process if you've never been through it, it can be one of the healthiest things that you do in and through your church.
Hmm.
At the end of a well run generosity campaign, your church is growing in the grace of giving. Your younger families, especially, but your congregation is learning stewardship principles about putting God first. And the very best campaigns, regardless of the type, is first of all, like we just talked about, the vision of the church and the mission and the need to make an impact in our community for the gospel of Jesus Christ. But the second thing is, it is never a financial transaction, it's a spiritual journey.
Hmm.
And the biggest team that we develop in a generosity campaign is the spiritual emphasis team. They are the largest team, and they are working all the way through this campaign. And we bathe this thing in prayer. We challenge people in the area of scriptures to learn what God says in the area of stewardship. And it can be incredibly um, momentum building and faith building in that process when people sit back and they think, man, this campaign brought in 3 or 4 times what our annual budget is, above and beyond the annual budget or general fund giving. And they had no idea where that money would come from. And they see God do it in the middle of their church. They are inspired. They are reinforcing in their faith that the God we serve is big and great and can do anything as we put our hearts and minds towards Him. And it can be just a fabulous time. It grows volunteerism in that process. And it can be really, in addition to that, just from a practical sense, a big influx of cash for a specific project or need, regardless of if it's a new building, renovation, deferred maintenance, or debt.
We're talking to Mike Stadelmayer, the president of Church Growth Services. We're doing three podcasts that I think all church leaders, all lay leaders and pastors and staff need to be listening or watching. And it's about these different ways that giving takes place. But this is a lot more, as Mike has been saying, than just raising money. And we're taking this second episode to talk about capital fund giving, and we've defined that as a new building or a renovation or deferred maintenance, or perhaps even debt reduction. Some of the more common things that we're seeing right now. If I hear you correctly, don't want to put words in your mouth, Mike, but the word that you would have to pastors and anybody else that says, will this work for my church, is number one, yes. And number two, you're going to walk them through it every step of the way. You're not going to leave them alone, because I want this audience to hear that. You've been doing this for or your company's been doing it for 6 decades, and you've been doing it a long time yourself. I want them to
Yeah,
hear that.
I've been doing it since I was 3, Tom. Uh,
Yes,
but
yes.
uh, but but yeah, absolutely. We walk churches, church leadership, and churches through it. We've done campaigns with churches of 25 and helped them raise $500,000 just so
Wow.
that they can build access to their 125-year-old building, and some of their aging congregation can't even get in the building anymore or go to the fellowship hall. We've worked with churches of multi thousands to raise the millions of dollars and everything in between. And we resource you, we coach you, we just take hold of your hand and walk you through it step by step all the way through, and provide resources and materials so that we don't just say, here, do this. We say, here's what we want you to do, and here's samples and ideas on how to do that so that you can really shorten the amount of time you have to spend on it. But ultimately, you have to personalize it. Every church has to put its own thumbprint on it because no church is designed by God like yours. They're all different. They all have different cultures. But boy, we have with 6 decades of resources to help you. We've got more resources than you want to look at.
And you'll be there for them. Let's go to this one part of capital giving that we've alluded to, the whole area of deferred maintenance. Talk to us about some of
Yeah.
the things that you are seeing, the types of deferred maintenance. I know you just got through talking about a parking lot and air conditioning, but give us some other things. Well, put that story back in there, but give us some deferred maintenance stories.
Sure, sure. All campaigns, even deferred maintenance, are about vision, mission, and life change. And sometimes the campaign might be about refresh. We need to refresh our space because company's coming, and we want to put our best foot forward when they walk through the doors for the children's ministry, for the main entrance, and the sound system to work properly and not crackle and do all those things. We don't want the roof to be leaking in a bucket in the middle of the foyer. We don't want them to fall into a pothole in the parking lot and lose their car or anything like that. But even in a deferred maintenance, practical as some of those things are, it's about vision, mission, and life change. And it's about casting vision, not about potholes, because company's coming, and God's people need to be good stewards of God's house and take away any barriers for people who are coming to. They need to hear the message of Jesus Christ, and some of those deterrents keep them from hearing and not wanting to come back, and it can be really powerful. And we're doing more and more deferred maintenance because a lot of those buildings built 20 years ago, 30 years ago, now need just to be spruced up. Uh, we need to take care of God's church just like we take care of our house.
So you've mentioned as specific examples, parking lot. People don't realize that the parking lot is a first impression for people coming up, and some of the parking lots look terrible. It's one of the things I see in
Yeah.
consultations. You mentioned air conditions. I know that Sun Sam has gone through $2.1 million of needs of air conditioning in Southwest Florida. Other examples that you're seeing that are now coming to the forefront in deferred maintenance.
Yeah, a lot of it is just the security systems in children's ministry,
Mm.
and recarpeting that 30-year-old carpet, repainting, those kinds of things. Sound systems that aren't doing the job anymore and causing it. Half the congregation turns around as those microphones are popping, and those kinds of things, and those just don't leave a good impression on first-time guests and visitors, as well as just a distraction as well. And all of those things are just important. But and even restrooms. The old adage used to be the women's restroom was the very most important room in the place. I'm not sure if that's completely true, but it sets a tone for the visitor. They make a decision on whether they're coming back long before the pastor preaches.
Well, I got to tell just one little story about that. Have you been in a Buc-ee's yet?
I have not.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I have been many times now. That Texas firm is growing like crazy in Tennessee, and if you get on, particularly if
It's
you
a
get on
bucket list.
get on, well, don't put it too high on your list. I can tell you that. If you're on I-40, I travel to North Carolina a good bit, been have partnerships over there, and so I travel there, and there are two Buc-ee's on the way. If I'm by myself, I ain't going. But if Nellie Jo's with me, she wants to go, and you know why? The women's restroom. It is. She said it's the best women's restroom she's ever seen. I'm thinking we're going into this Protestant purgatory because she wants to go to the women's restroom, and we never get out for less than $30 just by walking in the store. That's another story into itself. But you just brought up the whole thing about women's restroom. So I want to finish this. We have gone through two sets or two episodes, one on general giving, just the regular giving every week, every month. That was the first episode. That was episode number 34. This episode number 35 has been about capital giving, which is the physical part of the church. It's building a new building. It's renovating. It's taking care of things that are falling apart, what we call deferred maintenance. It could be taking care of debt. There's so many things there. I want you, the church leader, to hear that there are solutions to that. And I don't
Yeah.
want you to be timid about using church growth services, because if you've never done anything with a great generosity firm like Church Growth Services, you're going to be blown away. And if you have done, you're going to do it again. And they are our sponsor, but I like to present this to our audience as a ministry that we absolutely endorse and encourage. So for all of you, go to Church Growth Services and look up all of their offerings. That's churchgrowthservices.com. And Mike is the president of Church Growth Services, and he'll probably greet you personally at some point. So, Mike, wrap this up for us. Anything you want to talk about on the capital fund side before we let this one in and we start talking about another one, which is legacy giving? Share with anything
Yeah.
else.
Pastors, let me just speak to you directly. When you do a generosity campaign and you do it well, it is not about talking about money for 90 days. It is talking about the vision of your church and how to make an impact. And even though there's a lot of moving parts, and we walk you through that, and we resource you and coach you so that you can do it well, when it's all said and done, our goal is that your church is at a better place spiritually. Your congregation gets discipled in the area of giving, which many pastors don't like to deal with. In fact, 7 out of 10 churches that do a good generosity campaign, while they have this huge influx of money, maybe double their income for 3 years, every year for the next 3 years, their general fund grows at the same time, because stewardship and momentum and spiritual journey is such a part of this process that it just grows generosity even in the general fund, and it is healthy for your church. I can't tell you the stories we hear on a regular basis of what God has done and how people have celebrated and grown in their faith, and it is a journey worth taking. Don't let the fear of the unknown keep you. We will walk you through it and serve you in your church well.
All right, that nugget. I mean, you need to go back to the first episode on the general fund and listen to the nuggets there. The nugget, among others, that I picked up on this one is when you do a capital campaign, or when you raise money for renovation, new building, or debt, whatever the case may be, deferred maintenance, this is not money going from one pocket to another. You're not hurting one fund, the general fund. You are actually helping the general fund. And that should encourage you. You're going to see new money come in through the capital fund. You're going to see new money come in through the general fund. So just to let you know, we're so proud to have Mike Stadelmayer, president of Church Growth Services and Church Growth Services, as our generosity stewardship partner at Church Answers. We're proud to have him here on this podcast. And I saw recently that a number of y'all are really listening to these podcasts. Guess what? Now you get to watch them as well. You get to choose whether you want the face or whether you want just the audio. When people see my face, they want audio, but maybe they'll be curious to see Mike's face as well. As always, thank you for being a part of Rainer on Leadership, and thank you for being a part of this special series dealing with different income streams for churches, but specifically the general fund, this one, the building or capital fund. And then the next one, we're going to talk about something that doesn't get as much conversation as it should, legacy giving. So I encourage you now to come to episode number 36. Make sure I got that right, which is going to be about legacy giving. We'll be talking more with Mike Stadelmayer. As always, thanks for being a part of Rainer on Leadership. We'll see you in the next episode.